No, it's not clickbait. I regret to inform you, dear viewer, 21% of Americans are illiterate.
If those kids could read, they'd be very upset.
In fact, if you dig into the stats, it's actually far more depressing. That 21% number is based on Americans that are above the 5th grade reading level. And amusingly, they're referred to as the functionally illiterate. Now, if you're one of those watching this video, I'm sorry. Just know that I don't have anything against you. In fact, I'm glad you're here.
Hello there.
But as you can imagine, this has disastrous downstream effects in politics and social media. You know, with Trump eliminating the Department of Education, I figured this was the perfect time to talk about this issue. Before I get into that, if you like this episode of Balance Takes, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another episode. Or I'll go back in time and make a searchable website of all the greatest hits of your most embarrassing high school moments. You might wonder how conversational line has devolved to, well, nonsense.
No time to explain. Grab onto our tongues.
How do I... Oh, that is so gross.
One day, you might instantly log on to social media and post something as innocuous as, I like pizza. And suddenly, a random commenter will reply with something tactically insane as, why do you hate children? I didn't say anything about children, which of course would be followed by... Good example of this was this innocent joke I made about one of the characters in Honkai Star Rail. Now, if you don't understand the context, it's not important. And if you don't know what Honkai Star Rail is at all, count yourself blessed. You're stuck in a room with Aglaia and Anaxa. What would you do? I replied, get rid of Aglaia. That woman would drug me, stuff me in a truck, and shove the car off a cliff if the prophecy told her she'd earn $5 more. Now, of course, I was being tongue-in-cheek, but the responses to this were interesting. Mischaracterization, final boss. Holy mischaracterization. Blue sky in profile, blue sky in profile, blue sky in profile. And you deserve it. Huh? This is why we need to promote literacy.
Ironic.
Holy gosh, mischaracterization overload. She would not drug you. Holy gosh, it's a joke. Jokes are supposed to be somewhat funny. Imagine if Aglaia was a real person and you just dragged her name through the mud like this for a joke. Not funny. She would not drug you, stuff you in a truck, and shove the car for a mere $5. She just wants the best for her people. The only time she threatens someone is to see if they have good enough will to keep the secret of another world to themselves. And they almost failed that. She's the best morally great character I've seen in Emphoria so far. Good character, yes, but it's not that serious. And you get the picture. And I'm sure it's not all that surprising either. People can be absolutely unhinged online. But what if I were to tell you that part of the reason is because they're functionally illiterate?
They'd be very upset.
A good example of this illiteracy is, well, social media. Every 1 out of 5 Americans read at a 5th grade scale, but it goes even deeper than this. The ability to read and to think are linked. The more a person reads, especially during their formative years, the more cognitive skills they are capable of. The more well-read they become, the more connections are made inside their brains, allowing them to think faster and more efficiently. Unless the person has some moral framework that will prevent them from just being as psychotic as possible,
Carl, stop avoiding.
then they will simply combine their illiteracy with whatever will give them the most emotionally satisfying gratification in that moment.
Happy birthday! Why don't you blow out your candle?
And that's the key part here. Moral framework. Educated people can be unwise, and uneducated people can be wise. The difference here, or the relevant question, is what moral framework do they have undergirding the education that they do have? The problem in America is that our moral framework has degraded so much that our undereducation has now become a problem. That's why on social media, the person on the other side of the screen doesn't understand your well thought out 500-word treatise. They can't. And, well, they also don't want to. When it comes to politics, many of these people actively ruin discourse by chanting annoying slogans, screaming, and actively refusing substantive debates. On social media, they'll jump to psychotic conclusions and start word vomiting expletives at you, accusing you of things that have nothing to do with the conversation. It is my belief that the functionally illiterate are becoming more and more of a problem because politicians have figured out the simplest way to win elections is to simply avoid debate entirely, spitting out the most simplistic slogans that appeal to the most disconnected people, all the while appealing to the lowest common denominator. Now, hang on, in terms of history, people used to be far more illiterate than they are now, right? Just take the Civil War, for instance. During the Civil War era, literacy rates in the United States were generally high, with estimates suggesting that around 80 to 90% of the white population was literate. Yeah, apart from the slaves, obviously. It looks like the numbers may have been either on par or better back then, depending on your metric. In fact, there was a famous letter from a man who knew he was going to die in the Civil War that he wrote to his wife back at home. And it illustrates just how much better people were educated back then, at least on average. My very dear Sarah, The indications are very strong that we shall move in a few days, perhaps tomorrow. Lest I should not be able to write again, I feel impelled to write a few lines that may fall under your eye when I shall be no more. I have no misgivings about or lack of confidence in the cause in which I am engaged, and my courage does not halt or falter. I know how strongly American civilization now leans on the triumph of the government, and how great a debt we owe to those who went before us through the blood and sufferings of the Revolution. I am willing, perfectly willing, to lay down all my joys in this life to help maintain this government and to pay that debt. Sarah, my love for you is deathless. It seems to bind me with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence could break, and yet my love of country comes over me like a strong wind and bears me unresistibly on with all these chains to the battlefield. But oh, Sarah, if the dead can come back to this earth and flit unseen around those they have loved, I shall always be near you. In the gladdest days and in the darkest nights, always, always. And if there be a soft breeze upon your cheek, it shall be my breath. As the cool air fans your throbbing temple, it shall be my spirit passing by. Sarah, do not mourn me dead. Think I am gone, and wait for thee, for we shall meet again. Unfortunately, this man, named Sullivan Balu, was killed a week later in the First Battle of Bull Run on July 21st, 1861. Now, I can't say he used extremely large words or sublimely sophisticated tones, but just listening to the average words that he did use, which for the most part were completely understandable, the amount of imagery and the amount of contemplation that he used was definitely superior to anything people use nowadays. Well, okay, so ignoring that, how do politicians now, according to you, suddenly decide to speak to our lowest common denominator? Haven't they always done that? Well, yes, but actually no. I postulate that the difference now is social media.
Efficiency, industry. Never before has this many
Lies.
been so manageable.
In fact, news now has become more about who can claim the narrative first than about what is actually true. No one reads the retraction from the news outlet 3 weeks after the fact. All they remember is that big, bad, evil candidate kicked grandma off a cliff and laughed about it. And they'll never forget that crime against humanity itself. So it's easy to see why social media has become garbage, because everyone is fighting over that 21% number. Everyone. Influencers and political campaigns more or less have to, well, depending on which side or faction you're on, shore up that 21% and make sure they stay enraged.
He will not divide us! He will not divide us!
Why spend time actually trying to get one side or the other to convert or come to your side or try to persuade them in some manner when you can just get that 21% to go to the polls and vote? And so, be it via lies or truth, they have to spread as much craziness as possible. And the 21% are more than happy to pick up that baton and run with it.
He will not divide us!
Now, to be fair, this 21% number isn't all bad. For instance, older generations especially did need to be as proficient in reading and writing, as they tend to focus more on manual labor than we do now. And in everyday life, being able to communicate proficiently just wasn't as important. But now, as many first world countries are moving towards automation and service economies, with social media, we need to communicate well now more than ever, not just to resolve our political differences at light speed, but also so that we can inoculate ourselves against the lies and simplistic sloganeering. And that, my friend, is where I like to give a little light at the end of the tunnel with a quick personal story. Recently, I went to Olive Garden with my wife, and across the way there were two children arguing about some Pokemon game. You remember Pokemon Go, that game everyone got infatuated with during the dark years, when we were all locked inside our homes, except only to go outside and walk and see the sunlight? Where have the years gone? Yeah, I don't really know entirely what they were arguing about, but I did hear one say, "I don't give consent," to which the other naturally yelled out, "Well, okay, racist," and then they both started laughing. As did I, but why? Well, we have been so inundated with fake facades from social media and the lies from the news media that it has all blended into a wash where no insult really matters anymore.
I'm leaving, Carl.
What?
That old adage of "sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me" is coming back again, and it's filtered down so far from our everyday discourse that even 8 and 9-year-olds have picked up on it. And such insults, which used to be devastating, we just yell them out in a crowded restaurant, while the parents just sit idly by, not at all worried.
Grab onto our tongues!
Oh, really? Again with the tongues?
Now, in some ways, yes, this is bad, because words should have meaning. Anyone who knows me personally knows that I'm definitely an advocate of words having meaning and those words being used appropriately. But in most ways, for discourse at least, this is good. One of the primary barriers to good people being able to get into political office or even just to function in day-to-day life has been false accusations and smears. But if this vitriol just doesn't matter anymore, then perhaps America can finally turn the page and have a clearer, more meaningful future where actual discourse can take place, and the smearing and the lies simply fade into the background. Back in the day, people were willing to sit around the water cooler at work and discuss politics and discuss even controversial issues without having to run to HR and complain about things or constantly be on edge of offending another coworker. The whole need to keep our political and our religious beliefs a secret at work are more recent things that are happening. Is unfortunately a result of a world where people willingly lie about each other, call each other racist or call each other names just so they can get one over on their coworker, and a constant continual churn of hatred and disrespect. So my advice to you is the next time you find one of these people on social media that clearly have emotional regulation of a toddler, just ignore them. That's it. Disengage. Don't empower them. Don't entertain them. Just pretend that they don't exist. There's no way to talk sense to them anyway, so don't even try. They're just there to sling mud and drag you down. Because as the Bible says in Proverbs, answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou be like unto him. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know your comments or criticisms down in the comment section down below. And I'll see you again next time. Bye!